Good morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Delighted to have you with us on a week that foresees not to have a whole lot of rain. And we're thankful for that. We're thankful for the rain, but we're also thankful for the sunshine. We're very pleased to have a longtime friend in the studio today. A little bit different program for me, but one I've been looking forward to. Bryan Hager of Hager Farms and Cotton Mill Farmers Market is live and in person. Good morning, Bryan.
Good morning, Steve. Good to be here.
He's got the radio voice. I don't, but that's good. At least somebody does. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Cotton Mill Farmers Market and everything associated with that. Is it's so important. As you know, we tend to push back against or try to push back against urban sprawl, and one way to do that is to grow your own, grow locally, and support local farmers. For those who don't know, and there are, I'm sure, some, tell us about the Cotton Mill Farmers Market, what it is, where it is, and a little bit about it.
Cotton Mill Farmers Market is located on Dixie Street, just a block up from Tanner Hospital, and we are there Saturday mornings from 8 until 12 a.m. every Saturday. We actually operate year-round now, that though we do shorter hours during the winter. And we have produce vendors, we have meat vendors, we have goat cheese coming in every other week, and we also have some craft vendors doing pottery, and you can get the aprons that you use in the kitchen while you cook our produce there.
You know, that you just kind of slipped that in about you're open during the winter. Now, most people would not think that was feasible, but it is. So why is that feasible?
Well, in our climate, you can grow a lot of things, especially your salad greens, your lettuce, spinach, kale, and things like that through the winter. And then the people who are harvesting animals, they can still do that through the winter and put them in the freezer and then bring them to market. So we decided actually 2 years ago to, a little bit longer than that, to allow some of our farmers to continue to operate in the space. And we called it the impromptu market, just whoever showed up. Mm-hmm. Then this past year we decided, hey, there's enough of us wanting to do this who are making a living at this, or trying to, and doing it, as our primary living.
Right.
We want to keep the income flowing in. And so there's a dedicated crew of customers who come every week. And we did close during the snowstorm back in January. But we have been open every Saturday since then.
That requires a tremendous dedication on part of you and the vendors to be there every Saturday morning, does it not?
Yes, it does. And normally winter is our downtime when we get to repair buildings and heal ourselves from all the hard work.
Right.
But it's still a slower time. It's nice to have the income, and it's nice to see the people and maintain the connections.
Looking at your website, which is cottonmillfarmersmarket.org, it lists the vendors. And we got Craig Hager. But we also have Dennis Farms, CL Farms, Blue Heron Art Studio, the Gary Farm, Whole Grains and More, Sparkleberry Farms, Capra Gia Cheese Company. Am I saying that right?
Pretty close, Capra Gia.
Willow Soap, and Victory Designs. Tell us a little something about these vendors. I mean, are they all local? Or?
Okay, so the number one rule for our farmers market, you have to be in Carroll County or an adjacent county.
Okay.
And so we are a truly local farmers market, and that's the most important thing. The second is that you have to grow it or make it in order to sell it. Now, we do have some cases where for instance, Brian Hetherington, who's in Haralson County, a friend of mine, I'll sometimes sell some of his apples, but he qualifies. He's local, and we know his product. And so we do have some of that, but all of these farmers are local. They're small family operations. Sometimes it's a primary income. Sometimes it's a secondary income. We have a couple of school teachers who are there on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Steve Swidell is a school teacher, and he comes in and sells soap on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And it's a nice supplementary income. Teachers don't get paid a lot, and he's looking for a little extra. And then we have people like Melanie Skinner, who has the Whole Grains and More, and she's selling a variety of baked goods, gluten-free as well as whole wheat products, and that she grinds her grains herself. And she also has water kefir and brownies, peanut butter brownies, which are just wonderful, and things like that.
So you know all of these vendors, and they're
Right.
somewhat vetted too. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So we actually, somebody on the board of Cotton Mill Farmers Market goes and visits any new vendor to make sure that they are actually doing what they say they're doing. We don't want somebody, maybe they've got a little garden plot, but what they're really selling is they're going to the state farmers market on Friday and picking stuff up. That has happened at other farmers markets. And in
Right.
fact, we left another farmers market that wasn't policing
Right.
its vendors and holding them accountable for what they say they're doing.
You had mentioned before we started that you've had in the past a kind of a kids farmers market, and I think you could tell us a little something about that.
We want to support people getting into farming, and one of the more interesting ways to do that is we have a Kid Vendor Day. And so this is the fourth Saturday of every month, and it'll start in June. And so kids can come in, and we set up a tent for them. They need to bring their own table, but they can sell anything that they make or grow, and for free. We don't charge them a booth fee. And so it's fun, and this is for kids up through the age of 13. They're older than that, we figure they can take a little bit more responsibility, and we have had some an FFA member who came and sold for a while one summer. And so we have kids bring in things that a lot of baked goods. We had last year we had one kid bring in a bunch of doggy treats, just things that they have fun making at home, and then trying to make a little extra income. And that entrepreneurial spirit is something to cultivate in all of us.
Well, when we had Patrick on last week of Patrick's Eggs last Friday, the comment is often made that a lot of kids think that food comes from the back of the grocery store and that it somehow just simply comes off a shelf. But there's a lot more to producing food than just going to the grocery store and picking it off a shelf. How do you think people in general and kids in particular really understand the source of food and how it's grown?
Well, we're seeing educational programs. Carrollton City Schools have been doing a lot of that, and they're trying to have gardens at most of their schools. And then at Cotton Mill, on the first and third Saturdays, we have what we call Power of Produce Days.
Really?
Where we actually have games around the food. And it's to encourage kids to know where their food comes from and to try some new things. So we have the 2-bite challenge. We'll have different things on the table, and if the kids will take bites of 2 different things, they get a coupon that they can then use to go around the market and buy something. And that's a lot of fun. We do that in partnership with Tanner Hospital, Tanner Medical System, through their Get Healthy, Live Well program. They are trying to encourage people to eat more fruits and vegetables, and so it's a good partnership with them to do this kind of kids eating program.
It's always a good thing to say something nice about the sponsor. And our sponsor this morning is Tanner Health System, and we're going to be back with more of Bryan Hager, and we're going to talk about the O word, organic, and what it means after this word from Tanner.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. We're honored to have you listening this morning. Without you, well, we'd all just be sitting home half asleep. Cotton Mill Farmers Market is our topic this morning. You can listen to us on 1330 AM, 106.3 FM, on the TuneIn app. You can go to our website and see us, or you can go to Facebook Live. And you see the pretty faces of Bryan and Steve. Hey, we're looking good, if I may say so myself. But we've got a couple of questions from a couple people who posted. Linnell and Glenn want to know, when I say the Cotton Mill Farmers Market is on Dixie Street, where is that?
Okay, we're at 609 Dixie Street, which is one block away from Tanner's main hospital campus, and just a mile, actually probably less than a mile from downtown Carrollton, from the square in Carrollton.
And we could say we're near Keep Carroll Beautiful, too.
Right. We're actually in the parking lot next to Keep Carroll Beautiful, and there's a sign outside that says Farmers Market on Saturday with a rooster on top.
Of course.
For you to see as you're driving by.
But roosters don't lay eggs, so why would they pick? CottonMillFarmersMarket.org has the directions to that, and sounds good. Is Dixie Street proving to be a good location?
We love the shade and trees and things on the site. Where we were before on Rome Street, got really hot. We cooked there every summer, so this is a much more pleasant
You got some
location.
Grass to walk around in,
yes.
so it's just kind of more appropriate.
Right, and we appreciate Keep Carroll Beautiful and Tanner Hospital for providing the space for us.
Tell us, there's so many important aspects, and I want to take, in this next few minutes, take your time and really hone in on that. The word organic has been used, come to life in recent years, but sometimes organic doesn't mean what we think it means, and sometimes clearly it's overused. So what does that mean in your mind when a food, a vegetable is declared to be organic?
We, speaking for Bryan Hager Farm, we decided to certify organic last year. We had been growing very close to organic using a program called Certified Naturally Grown for many years. Organic means that you're not using synthetic herbicides or pesticides. There are some natural herbicides and pesticides that you can use, and that you're using natural fertilizers. Now that includes everything from your backyard compost through chicken litter. You can't use the things that are manufactured products for fertilizer. You can use mined products. So there's a lot of things in there. It's part of the confusion is that there is a continuing battle. The organic industry is working very hard to maintain that standard. That's part of who we are. That's part of our marketing, and it's under constant attack by usually people within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so we are constantly fighting with them to protect the standard, and there's some confusion. It does not mean local. Somebody can be local and using a lot of chemicals, and there's confusion over that sometimes.
I want to dig more deeply, no pun intended, into that in a few minutes, because I think that's a whole nother topic, obviously, that could, and I want to get back, I want to stay in that a little bit. But let's, first, I think this is critically important. When you buy freshly grown produce and foods, I mean, there are true health benefits to that, correct?
Yeah.
And how is that augmented by the fact that they're grown locally?
Okay. So eating fruits and vegetables is better for your diet than eating a lot of stuff that's, your processed products, whether it's the extremes on one side, which would be a fried donut. Those are okay as treats, but they become too much of a standard as part of our diet. And whether it's preventing heart disease, cancer, diabetes, so many of these major health problems that we have, you can prevent and sometimes help cure a lot of those by significantly increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables you eat, whether they're organic or not. Then when you're organic, if you're eating organic fruits and vegetables, you're reducing the amount of residual pesticides that you would be consuming. a lot of, especially our fruits like strawberries, apples, even potatoes, have a lot of pesticides put on them. And there is some residue left, some of which is suspected of causing health problems. And so I chose to go organic because I didn't want to have to deal with those toxins. The farmers are exposed to those things much more than the consumers are. And when you see the pictures of the workers out in the fields, they look, quite often they're in moon suits because they're trying to protect themselves from the chemicals that they're applying to the crops. I don't like to do that. So that's my primary driver for going organic. So that's a whole nother level of improvement in the quality of what you're eating. But for the average person, if you can just increase the amount of fruits and vegetables you eat, you're going to feel healthier. And you will be healthier over time.
Well, one time somebody told me that the best way to select your foods when you go into a grocery store is just to stay on the outside periphery.
Yeah.
Go through the produce, and then then go through the fresh meats and then dairy products, and then check yourself out. Is there some truth to that?
There is, and I still use, especially when I was before I was farming full time, went down the frozen vegetable aisle, because one of the things you have to remember, at the farmer's market, the produce you're getting is at most 3 days old. Most of it was harvested the day before. The quote fresh produce in the grocery store is an average of 5 days old, whereas the stuff you get in the frozen was usually frozen the day it was harvested. So in many ways, it may have more nutrients in it than some of the stuff that's been sitting on the shelf for a long time in the grocery store.
And part of that is because of transportation. I mean, this stuff's coming from California or another country even.
Right.
And so it's picked really early.
Well, this is one of the disturbing things that has happened with a lot of our fruits, like strawberries and things like that.
Right.
They get picked, and tomatoes, they get picked way before they're ripe. And then they do things to them to make them look ripe when they get to the store to get them to turn red, but they don't have the flavor. Under USDA rules, you can call something vine ripened if it has started to turn pink, a tomato. Whereas the tomatoes that you get at our farmers market were within a day or two of being fully ripe when they were picked.
So what can they do to make it turn riper or look red?
You expose it to various chemicals that cause it to ripen up faster.
Oh. You use the word, and I definitely want to get to this, taste.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to I think this is all somewhat ironic, you go to the very finest restaurants, and they're big on buying local and buying fresh because that taste is there. Of course, then the bill reflects it. But anyway, elaborate on when you pick it and it's ripe and you don't transport it over a week and you buy it. How much difference is the taste?
Well, this is what they found out with the kids, and the reason the power of produce works. When kids eat something that's really fresh, they taste the difference, and they are more likely to want to eat fruits and vegetables.
Wow.
And that applies to adults too. But when you pick something, it starts to die, okay? And the vitamins and the flavors start to deteriorate. The minerals will hold on. They don't go away, but the vitamins and the flavors start to deteriorate. And so that's why getting something really fresh, you can taste the difference between the broccoli that I'm bringing and the broccoli that's in the grocery store.
But in that answer, you're suggesting that if you begin, train, bring up a child eating fresh fruits and vegetables, their taste for that will carry through their lifetime.
It should carry through their lifetime, if they have access to it. But the main thing is, they're going to start wanting to eat that earlier, and hopefully you're helping to create good habits starting earlier. And those are those kind of things that get harder and harder to shift the older you get.
Sure. Our guest this morning is Bryan Hager of Hager Krager Farms and the Cotton Mills Farmers Market. We're learning a lot. Stay with us. We got more after this word from Tanner Health System.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Gradick, your host. Glad to have you with us this morning. Again, on Facebook Live and, of course, 106.3, 1330 AM. We've still got a couple of questions about when and where. So it's Saturdays tell us when and where.
We are every Saturday morning, and our current hours are 8 a.m. to noon, and it's 609 Dixie Street, which is next to Tanner Hospital, and Keep Carroll Beautiful.
KCB.
Yep.
That sounds good. I want to get back into organic and toxic chemicals, et cetera. Before we do, when we started the program, you went through this long list of different foods that are available there, and you went through it kind of fast.
Okay.
Let's go through it a little bit more slowly, and because a lot of these foods people have never even heard of.
Okay.
So what are some of the foods that you'll find at the Cotton Mill Farmers Market?
Okay. If you come this coming Saturday, you will find tomatoes, summer squash, cabbage, broccoli, a whole lot of different salad greens, lettuce, kale, arugula, some things that people may sound odd. French sorrel, which is a bright lemony flavored green that is great as an addition to a salad or cooked into things. There will be onions and potatoes, and you will also find we have a local meat vendor who brings in prime burger, which is the whole cow ground up. It's very rich flavor. It's a wonderful flavor, as well as pork chops and various pork cuts. We have eggs. Let's see, what else? Flours. And then we also have a pottery vendor. We may have, worm castings. It's things related to farming or things that people produce locally.
In recent years, we've heard the terms free range and free,
Yep.
Open cage or whatever.
Yep.
What do all those new terms mean?
Yeah, that's a big one, especially on the eggs. So there are a couple of, you got to remember, you've got certified versions of these things, and then you've got just what people are saying. And so the eggs that are sold at Cotton Mill by all the vendors, we don't have a rule on this, but this is just what they're responding to what the customers want, are cage-free.
Cage-free.
And some of them are also pastured, which means they're out on grass and they're moved around so that they have access to the bugs and the things that they would normally eat, as well as a grain supplement. And it's a healthier lifestyle for the chicken. People can feel good about the chickens that they get their eggs from.
Well, we ran a story this morning in Georgia Farm Bureau about dairy cows and how they can have like a barn that's like open, and they got showers, and they can sleep and eat wherever they want to, these cows, these dairy cows. So the premise, I guess, is that the happier the animal, the better tasting the food?
Well, it's the less stress the animal, because when they get stressed, they produce a variety of chemicals in response to that stress, which ends up either in the meat, the milk, or the eggs.
I know what stress is for a human. What is stress for an animal?
Well, it's being crammed too close together. And they don't, they get stressed by that. It causes, just like, you
like
do that with
Atlanta
people.
traffic.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
that kind of thing. And it produces chemicals, those stress chemicals, those fight or flight that you get tense and you're fighting with traffic, you get tense. Well, the same thing happens with animals if they don't have enough room to move.
Really?
And aren't doing the things that they naturally like to do.
So another reason to keep Carroll County somewhat rural and keep the urban sprawl away is stress.
Well, the traffic can be a stress inducer for a lot of things.
Particularly for me, because I can't drive, as everybody will attest to. We talked about organic, and we talked about chemicals, and I want to ask you to dig a little more again into that. The I guess the counter argument for the chemical synthetic fertilizers is simply yield, being able to produce more. Is that a legitimate argument?
It depends on how you measure it. Okay, when you measure it over a multi-year period, for most crops, there's a very small additional increase with conventional over organic. The value that organic has is that in your extreme years, your drought years in particular, the organic crops fare better because you've built up the soil, it holds moisture better, and they're more resilient and can respond. So the farmer is able to produce more in a drought year. Well, the value for the farmer in that is that he gets a better price those years because there's less of that crop available. So for the profitability of the farmer, it actually is an improvement. Now, as far as feeding the world type of thing, that argument, organic is the only way that you're going to feed the world because the majority of the world cannot afford the high input costs of conventional farming in America. When you look at the places in the world where they're food insecure, they are naturally more organically oriented anyway because they're using local resources. And if they have to buy in fertilizer or seed from out of the country to grow their crops, they won't be able to afford to do it.
How do you deal with pests?
You plant a little extra. You have a diverse landscape. So you can't just plant a whole field in just one crop because then it becomes a magnet for the bugs. You have a diversity of crops. I've always got things flowering because that attracts the natural predators, which can then help to control those. And then there are a few things that we can use to either discourage those those pests on our crops. And then there are a few things that we can use that are natural pesticides. They're short-lived and they don't leave a residue on the crop like the synthetic products do.
You mentioned the word seed, and we've read about how Monsanto, and I don't know how to describe it, has pretty much cornered that and come up with hybrid seeds. What are the dangers there?
Well, hybridization is just crossing. So I'm creating hybrids if I select tomato seeds, and I'm doing selection, and which I do. I have several crops where I'm saved the seeds from them. The problem with what Monsanto is doing is they're trying to patent life. This is my problem with their business model. They want to control the whole seed system so that you have to come back to them every year to get the seed, and you become totally dependent on them. And that is very expensive for the farmer. The standard used to be you could buy a new seed from somebody, and you could then save the seed from that to use for your own growing. And but now with the Monsanto, and they're not the only one, but they're the largest, you can't save the seed from that crop anymore. And it makes the farmer totally dependent, which I don't think is a sustainable business model for farming. Now, the other problem is what they're doing is primarily doing these hybrids that are resistant to the chemicals that they're then putting on those plants. So they're Roundup ready crops is so that you can then apply more herbicides, more poisons on the environment. And now that the weeds have developed a resistance to Roundup, they're having to go to even more deadly herbicides and the dicamba and things that are causing all these problems in the big grain growing areas because of the drift that you get from that.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time. Cotton Mill Farmers Market, when and where, real fast.
609 Dixie Street, Saturday mornings, 8 to noon. Come and find your local fresh product and talk to your local farmers.
Our thanks to Bryan Hager this morning, and thanks for listening to WLBB Carrollton.